Welcome back to another week, another edition of Political Breakfast right here on WABE. We are coming off a holiday weekend, and both our strategists are here. Republican strategist Brian Robinson and Democratic strategist Tharon Johnson. Hello to both of you. And hello to fall. Fall is in the air, isn't it?
Feels like magic out there.
Magic.
This is a good time of year because you wake up in the morning and you're used to now for months just having on a T-shirt, some shorts, and sometimes I put on my Gucci flip flops or I put on my go-to outdoor flip flops. But anyway, the last few mornings I've had to put on a little zip up.
You wear the Gucci outside, Tharon. You wear the Gucci flip flops outside.
Well, Lisa, you gotta have the Gucci flip flops to walk around the house in, but then you gotta have the outdoor flip flops. And those are the ones that you've had for a long time. Yeah. And if your wife see those inside the house, then it's
from Old Navy.
Yeah, from Old Navy, Foot Locker back in the day. But those are the comfortable ones. And you got to grill in your flip flops too. So I was grilling this weekend, and my flip flops with socks. You got to wear the socks. You got to have the one that goes all the way up to your calf, Brian. That's the way we cook out. But no, it was a great weekend. Shout out to.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Just you remember. I just remember waking up in the mornings on Saturdays and seeing my uncles and my brother didn't really grill that much. Most of my uncles just grilling out. But you got to have the flip flops with the socks kind of all the way up to the calf muscles. That's the look.
That's how you tell everybody your middle age right there. Just wearing the sign.
Yeah.
Well, I took my daughter to the Georgia game on Saturday, and I was thinking it was going to be a little cooler than it was. She got a little hot out there, but
it was
just so good to be back in Sanford Stadium. And, of course, a little bit of political news was made there at the game, too, so I'm sure we'll get to that.
Yeah, some big political news. We knew it was going to happen, right, with Governor Kemp endorsing Derek Dooley, but it happened officially at the game. So what was the significance behind all that?
Well, at this juncture, Derek Dooley's still trying to get some momentum, and so they've rolled him out there. And I'll remind everybody, early on our show, I said Derek Dooley's got to do his rollout alone. He can't be standing there shoulder to shoulder with the most well-known politician in the state and look like a little brother. He's got to be his own man. He's got to have his own message. He's got to tell us who he is on his own. He is running for the U.S. Senate, not for lieutenant governor in a Brian Kemp administration, right? So I think that they put in that time, about a month or more, of Derek slowly doing some interviews, getting around the state a little bit. And so now they're trying to build a little bit more momentum. They've been able to spend some money. All of us have been seeing these hardworking Georgians ads on our digitals. Well, at least Republicans have. I don't know. Maybe Tharon's not getting these ads served up to him. I'm not sure. I wouldn't think so. It's bad. It's a bad spin if Tharon's getting them. I'm getting a ton. I can't go on social media anywhere in Georgia without getting a Derek Dooley ad paid for by Brian Kemp's political operation. So this was another step. And we saw a couple of weeks ago an ad that was pushed by the Mike Collins campaign for Senate. I don't know the origins of it, but it showed Collins in the high 20s, Buddy Carter in the mid to low 20s, and then Derek Dooley at 8. So that's very normal. Both of those congressmen have some bases of their own. They have a constituency that they've served and who know them. That gives you a floor in these polls. Derek Dooley didn't have that kind of constituency, that foundation to build off of. So he's having to build his organically from scratch. So they're trying to make sure that each time there's some public polling coming out, you're seeing some growth. You're seeing him going in the right direction, making an argument that he's got momentum and that he's got a lot of headway to continue to grow. So I thought the messaging from Kemp was really interesting. I'll circle back to that after we hear from Tharon.
Well, no, go ahead, B-Rob. I didn't see it. So sorry. I did watch the game. I watched the first quarter. I did not get a chance to go to the game because neither you and all these friends that I have that are season ticket holders at UJ haven't invited me to a game in years.
Yeah, I don't think you sit. I don't think you sit in my kind of seats. Like my seats are like on bleachers in the sun, and I think you would turn your nose up on it. Frankly. Like, there are no Gucci flip-flops in my section at all.
Well, but B-Rob, I must remind you, and you've heard me tell this story before, I grew up in Athens. So I used to actually sell Cokes at the game.
Did you really?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
hard work. Did you carry the big thing down the aisle?
Oh, the big thing, wrapped it around your neck, the big old belt. And back then, B-Rob, we didn't have all these fancy, plastic, special material things to hold the Cokes, right? The lid would kind of fall off, and you'd be going up and down the stairs, and all the Coke stuff is just, dripping over your
They're
apron.
looking at you like, come on now.
So just be nice to those young kids out there, B-Rob. Don't be too bougie with them, because that was
I
me.
always tip.
Yeah,
I always
well,
tip
was
those
you.
guys. That's hard work.
Back in the day.
I mean, but I would love to have some video of you yelling, "Ice cold Coke here, ice cold Coke here."
Well, I'll tell you in person my Marcus Stroud story during the Olympics. I actually served Cokes with him. He's a great UGA defensive lineman who went on to be great in the professional football league. But Brian, seriously, I did not I didn't see it. So I'll kind of yield my time to you to tell our listeners kind of what happened.
Well, quickly,
So Brian Kemp,
Tharon, tell us how big a deal is that, for Governor Kemp to do that, Tharon? I know
That's right.
you have
Yeah.
some perspective there.
No, I do. Thank you, Lisa, for always giving me equal time. I have been actually saying, sort of in my own way, that the Kemp and his sort of organization, his money, his influence were already behind Derek Dooley, because I forgot he had never officially endorsed him until this past weekend. What we do remember for our listeners is that Governor Kemp made calls to other candidates to inform them that he was going to be supporting Derek Dooley. So, Lisa, it's what Brian and I have been saying for a while. How does he roll out? How does he separate himself? Well, one way to do it is to do it at, Sanford Stadium, Dooley Field, where, I'm sure as a little boy and his family has spent an enormous amount of time. So it cuts right into the UGA connection that he's got to quadruple down on if he's going to get out and about. But Lisa, what it also showed is that while I believe that meeting and those meetings have been had and they've been discussing rollout, and I always kind of joke and say the governor still likes to drink his Budweisers. I think First Lady Marty Kemp maybe have a Budweiser, but I think she's more of a wine gal. They've been concocting this. They've been planning it, right? And so I think that this is one of many tricks up their sleeves to introduce the candidate, Derek Dooley, to the Republican electorate. And then it's also got to be a way where Kemp's experience and team has got to have a lot of pressure on them to be able to not only proactively get him out there, but once Mike Collins and Buddy Carter continues to ramp up their strategy, how's he going to react once he's hit? Because he really hasn't really been hit yet. And a famous philosopher said this one time: everyone has a plan until they get in the ring and get hit. Mike Tyson. So he's been bruised up a little bit. They've been kind of, slinging him around. It's a little bit of a fist fight. But no, once the negative attacks come out, and he is going to be hit on his, not voting, all these things that people have been sharing. Let's see how well the infrastructure will be to be able to withstand those negative attacks.
I think the question of Kemp's endorsement and how important and impactful it is one of the big questions of the campaign. Around the country, we've seen President Trump's endorsement mean a lot more than anybody else's. His means something and no one else really means anything. So is it different in Georgia? Georgia has proven that it is different when it comes to Trump. It's one of the few Republican Party primary electorates that's ever rejected Trump's chosen candidates in a race. So we're already proven that we'll go our own way. The Kemp folks truly believe, and look, you got to give them some credibility. They've been right on a lot. They've been out on a limb numerous times over the last 7 years and been proven to have some either really good luck or some really good vision. So let's just say it's good vision. They think that their endorsement is as meaningful with the Georgia primary electorate as Trump's, or, at least within the ballpark. I think this is going to be a great empirical test of that theory. And so if it's true, once they start putting money behind some paid messaging that Kemp has endorsed Dooley, do we see his political polling numbers go up? That'll be the first evidence that the Kemp endorsement really means something. It could also be some of the messaging that Dooley does. But the main thing voters are going to be looking for, because none of these guys are running for Senate on a different platform. They're all kind of saying the same thing. Jon Ossoff sucks. Like, that's their message. He's too liberal. He was a Biden toady. We need somebody who represents a red state in the Senate. And so we got to replace this guy. So they're all kind of having the same message. So I don't think Dooley's message on its own is going to make him soar. If his numbers begin to move, right now, it is because of this Kemp effect. So we have a good measure of it. Let's see. Let's come back here in a few months and see what happened. So another thematic coming out of the news conference at the stadium on Saturday was something that we have discussed here all of 2025. And it is this. Brian Kemp is making an electability argument. He thinks an outsider is what we need to beat an insider in Jon Ossoff. He's saying Carter and Collins have voting records. They are insiders. They are politicians. You can use their records against them. You can go after Ossoff's record, but Ossoff can go after yours. And Ossoff won't have that with a blank slate like Derek Dooley, who doesn't have a congressional voting record. So Brian Kemp thinks an outsider is what we need to win. He said he thought that was what we needed before Derek Dooley came to him. And then once he found Derek Dooley, he was like, okay, this is going to be my guy. So the question that Tharon and I have been raising here and discussing all of 2025 is, do primary voters respond to an electability argument? Chris Carr is making one in the governor's race, saying, I'm the only one who can win a primary and a general, saying Burt Jones will be very vulnerable to the Democrats in November. Brian Kemp is making an electability argument for Derek Dooley on Derek Dooley's behalf. We haven't really heard that from Derek Dooley so much, but we have heard it from Kemp. And, you know, I raise this question about the Democrats. Will they have the discipline to nominate somebody who is acceptable to the middle, somebody who perhaps doesn't scratch the itch of rage that so many Democrat voters feel toward Trump? Do they go with somebody like the New Yorkers did by nominating this nut Mamdani? Do they go do something crazy in this environment because they're so angry? Or do they nominate somebody like Michael Thurman, who in no way embodies the rage that many of them feel, who in no way is the face of that anger? So, but he's also the one who could possibly win a general. Not that the others can't. Jason Estevez probably is an electable candidate too. But, are they disciplined enough? And are Republicans disciplined? I think now the question has come to the Republicans. Are Republicans disciplined enough to hear that message and respond to it?
Yeah, Lisa, I'll be real quick. Thank you, Brian, for pointing that out. And we have been talking about that a lot on the show. And one of the things I mentioned very early on is, can Derek Dooley take that poll that we saw a couple weeks ago that showed that 52% of Georgians did not like the big, beautiful bill and how it was going to negatively impact their way of living, and particularly around healthcare and the things that were cut. And, of course, we were talking about people still not feeling great about this economy. The cost of groceries are still too high. The cost of living is still too high. And I was thinking that Derek Dooley can say, hey, those guys are Washington insiders, Trump loyalists. If I'm elected to the U.S. Senate, I'll bring you something different. But let's pick up on this outsider piece for a second. I keep going back to David Perdue, and Lisa, I'll never forget it. My mom, who now is 80, she said I can say her age on the show now. She doesn't get mad at me as much anymore, is a person who is my go-to barometer when it comes to the field of the electric. I remember it vividly. It was a Saturday morning. She called me. She said, oh, my God, who's this good-looking white man walking through those fields in South Georgia with that jean jacket on? And at that point, David Perdue became sort of a symbol. I want to say he was a sex symbol because I know he's now the ambassador to China, right? B-Rob, he's, doing a lot of great stuff for us over in China. But he embraced this outsider. Also connected to a very, very popular cousin at the time, Sonny Perdue. So how does Dooley become his own man? And as a politician, he is his own man, but how does he become his own candidate, embrace the Dooley name? And I tell you this, I would love to have the Kemp machine. I would love to have an incumbent governor. And B-Rob knows this. Lisa, when you're working for an incumbent sitting governor, you're talking about the calls that can be made and answered, the resources that just miraculously appear into your orbit. But I still think that the only challenge I see is Trump and Brian Kemp have this political abusive relationship. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. I just don't think that Trump is going to sit back and not let whoever he decides to endorse, because he hasn't endorsed anyone yet, lose. Yeah. And so once it becomes a Trump versus Kemp sort of dynamic, then it's going to be a bigger sort of chaotic moment over in the primary. But ultimately, look, Derek Dooley did his thing. Great rollout. It's definitely got us talking about it. Folks are talking about it. So we'll see how it all works out.
But isn't Governor Kemp still trying to have those conversations with President Trump about possibly endorsing Dooley? Is that taking place still?
I think that they kind of do a head nod toward ongoing conversations, but I don't know that that's really actually happening. Yeah. It is my understanding, and the Dooley team pushes back on this when I've said it in the past, but it's my understanding that Trump's not going to be with Derek Dooley at the end of the day. Because if he was, what a great moment to have done it when Kemp was sitting in the Oval Office. Like, yeah, this is a great idea. Let's do this, right? That's not what happened. So we have to accept that reality. Tharon is right. I don't know how much Kemp saying he's for Dooley matters as far as like moving voters when they hear that. Where it matters is he can get Kemp's call list. So Kemp's biggest, very rich supporters are going to take his phone call, and he gets a open door to a lot of folks who a new candidate coming in from out of state, which is essentially what he is, won't necessarily have. So he does get that political network, and it's not only the donors, it's a grassroots network around the state of influencers. You look at the people in counties across the state who are on the hospital board, who are on the EMC board, who are on the local bank board. All of those folks love Brian Kemp. Like, they're huge fans of his. Those are people who are very influential in their communities. Are they going to say, look, I just trust Brian Kemp. The guy's just been right on time and time again. I trust him. And look, I've heard some Republican voters say that. I also know that Brian Kemp's had to call some legislators who've endorsed Mike Collins and said, hey, why are you not with me on this? And they're like, I love you. I'm with you, but I'm going my own way on this one. So some of that's just what we see in the 8th year of a 2-term governorship, is people beginning to break off and show some independence. We saw a quote come out this week from the Buddy Carter campaign being asked about Kemp endorsing Dooley. And he said, there's one endorsement that Republicans care about, and this ain't it. So we haven't seen quotes like that about Brian Kemp in a very long time, because he does wield all of these levers of power, and he is and remains very popular with Republicans. Mike Collins has handled it very differently. He said, hey, I'm a Brian Kemp fan, man. He's been a great governor. He's been fantastic. I love him. I'm sorry he's not going to be with me, but I'm going to go win this thing. Buddy Carter people were like, hey, you're going to get on the playing field. You're running across the field to catch a pass. We're going to take your head off, right? If you're on the playing field, it's fair game. So that's an interesting dynamic to kind of see. We have this unity under Kemp for so long that's beginning to break up, and it's perfectly normal. That's no diss on Brian Kemp. That's just how this process works.
Yeah, real quick, Lisa. I know I do want to say something B-Rob said. Give me 15 seconds. Electability. Yes, it is a big issue and conversation we're having in the Democratic Party right now, because the last thing we want to do again is to nominate someone who cannot win in the general. So a little different dynamics than right now. You don't have an incumbent governor, with the candidate. Also, shout out to Jon Ossoff. We're talking about him. We're not talking about him, but like the fact that whoever wins will have a very, very difficult time beating this very, very effective, very skilled campaign politician who, by the way, will have a lot of money. But in the governor's race, that's exactly what we're talking about, right? Who can we nominate that is going to be able to put together the winning coalition, all the type of attributes and abilities you need to win? Because one thing Republicans have shown us in Georgia is that every single election cycle except 2020. They have been able to unite, and we beat them in 2020, and they learned the lesson. They start changing, bills at the Senate. They start changing the way we vote. You had Kemp and Trump out here saying the elections were stolen. They came back together in 22, have remained focused in 2024. So Democrats have got to look at this, because no matter who they nominate, whether it's Buddy Carter, Mike Collins, Derek Dooley, Burt Jones, Chris Carr, Brad Raffensperger, whomever on those two top positions, they're going to unite behind that person. Democrats have got to be able to do the same. So we're going to have to put our feelings aside. Yes, some people are going to be with certain folks. Yes, certain things are going to be said. Feelings are going to be hurt. You're not going to be as left as you want us to be. We're not probably going to be as center as you want us to be. But no matter who emerges, we got to make sure that we're ready to unite behind that person. But it's got to be at top of mind when it comes to electability, not getting emotional and just electing someone because you like them or because of, they look good or they want to fight Trump. No, we got to elect the person that can actually build that coalition to beat that Republican in November of next year.
Well said, and same on my team.
Well, as you guys noted, political season really ramping up now that it's September, and we have, just quickly before we get out of here, State Representative Tanya Miller announced her campaign for Georgia Attorney General. Tharon, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, Tanya is a bright star within the Democratic Party. She is the Democratic House Chair of the caucus. This is a position that she won recently and was able to unite people together to vote for her. She ran against a very accomplished, well-respected veteran person in Billy Mitchell, who had that position before. Fast forward, Brian knows what I'm about to say. This is a person that a lot of Republicans sort of say, wow, like she's talented, she's smart, she's accomplished, but more importantly, she's deeply rooted into helping people. I remember when she ran her first race, Lisa, you had her on Morning Edition. I don't know if we've had her on Political Breakfast, but instantaneously she was able to go down to the Capitol and start trying to get things done. And now, last year, she and a few others were the main people who were opposed to tort reform and did a really good job using her experience as a prosecutor, experience as an attorney, the defense attorney, but former prosecutor, doing a lot of work in the community. She was able to point out some really good things about why tort reform bill was bad and still kind of led an effort where it only passed by one vote in the House. So now she launches this video and she wants to go for Attorney General because she wants to put people first. And I thought it was well done. I thought she's definitely going to run on her experience. But also she's running against Bob Trammell, who is a former minority leader in the House. And he launched his campaign a little bit before hers, a week. So he's been calling around, asking for money, asking for support. And one thing that former leader Trammell has done before is that he's been able to put together a winning coalition. He surprised a lot of folks back when he became leader in the House caucus. So, Tanya definitely got into the race at a time where I think she's going to really focus on raising money, building that coalition. I do know she's all out around the state already, calling folks. Trying to get them on board. But Trammell is someone who's known. They're going to both work that sort of House network. But ultimately, we'll see how the money raising go. These are two attorneys, so they'll be pulling from a lot of the attorney sort of pockets of money. But let's see if they can go outside of that. So I think it's going to be a really good race. But I think her rollout was good. Her message was on point. And just keep an eye on her. She definitely is going to run a very aggressive race. She's going to talk about things that could be with our Attorney General's office now and things that are not happening. But she's got to really focus on building that coalition of voters within the primary. But Trammell is not one to be slept on either. He's going to work hard. And again, he's got a lot of good relationships across the state.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to college with Bob. I don't know Tanya as well, but Tharon's right. A lot of Republicans in the House do like her. She is impressive and I think friendly. And they that's a good way to get things going when you're in the minority in a majority rules legislative chamber. So kudos to her on that. Bob and I went to college together, and Bob is a genius. I don't mean like he is like people say genius. They throw that word around because they're really good at something, right? Like he's like literally a genius. When we were in school together at UGA, he was one of the university fellows. So one of these, top performing students in the entire state that UGA would go out and recruit to stay, because these were the kind of kids who would go off to the Ivy Leagues or to the Dukes and Vanderbilts and that kind of stuff. So he really was one of the top performing students at the University of Georgia, went from there to the University of Virginia, one of the top public law schools in the entire country. So really bright guy, hard worker, nice guy. Let's see. It's hard to know what's going to break through in an attorney general's race. There's going to be so much attention on the governor and U.S. Senate races. That's going to be really hard to get a message out there and differentiate yourself. I do think in a majority woman primary, you got to say there are some advantages for Tanya in this race, right? Just built in. Bob has got to spend money in a way that is outperforming her on the spending in order to break through and try to get that advantage back. I think that's something that's absolutely essential. If it's just her versus him, she wins, I think, in this race. So he's got to go change that dynamic. And I do want to say on the attorney general's race on my side, you got two candidates there who've been in the state Senate for a long time, Brian Strickland and Bill Calzert, both of whom have raised a significant amount of money already, both of whom would be strong general election candidates.
Yeah, so B-Rob did a good job of explaining, and wow, I forgot you had that relationship with Bob Trimble. So thank you for sharing that with us. And clearly, I've known Tanya for a very long time. But on the Republican side, I would say this, Lisa, really quickly. Brian Strickland is a very effective state senator. His wife, Lindsey Strickland, who listens to this podcast, shout out to Lindsey. And don't forget, Lindsey, I'm always the one shouting you out before B-Rob. Now, I know y'all go way back.
We go way back, 20 years.
Yeah, y'all do, but I always like to mess with you when it comes to her. But from the looks of it, Strickland is spending a lot of time going around the state, and Lindsey's definitely out there, helping in her capacity in which she can, her free time. But then you got my boy Bill Calzer, who's my fellow Athenian, and happy birthday, Senator! Today is your birthday as we're taping, so I hope he'll get to this. And I think it's to be noted, his wife is the sister of Marty Kemp. And so, Calzer is not one to be slept on either. He's a firebrand. He's a well-respected senator as well. So these two gentlemen, I can't wait, B-Rob, to see them go at it, because Calzer is your traditional, good old attorney who's going to cross-examine you and come with that pressure. But Brian is a very suave, kind of like gentle assassin. He can cut you and come back. So these two guys, Lisa, watch out on the Republican side when they go at each other. Right now, it's all friendly. Everybody's trying to raise money. Everybody's together. But I would love to see the posture of these two gentlemen, not only can the campaign trail, but when session starts back in January, you're going to see all of these folks jockeying for a position. And I just think those two individuals are two to watch.
Yeah. And people, to Tharon's point, follow Lindsey Strickland on social media and follow Brian Strickland on social media. They post videos every day, really good content. They do a great job with it, put a lot of time into it. And they have something we don't often see on the state level in Georgia politics. They have a little bit of a glam appeal to them. They're good-looking folks. They have a very pretty family, and they're on the younger side amongst those who are running for statewide office. So it's a unique profile in that way. I don't think being good looking and good on social media is necessarily unique in politics. But it's not our norm. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Is that going to be a big benefit? Because people want to see this content from them. Because let's face it, the social media content that gets served up to us is usually like good looking people, right? So does that give them an advantage here?
All right, it is getting interesting, bound to get more interesting when we meet again next week. So thanks, guys, for checking in on your holiday, and hope you have a great week, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Lisa. And one of the things I mentioned very early on is, can Derek Dooley take that poll that we saw a couple weeks ago that showed that 50 plus, I think 52% of Georgians did not like the big, beautiful bill and how it was going to negatively impact their way of living, and particularly around healthcare and the things that were cut. And, of course, we were talking about people still not feeling great about this economy. The cost of groceries are still too high. The cost of living is still too high.